Howdy ho, friends and foes, and welcome to Dad's on Life, your weekly episodic show about parenting from a male perspective. I'm your host, Jay Miles, and with me, as always, are my co-host, Keith Bogan,
Hello, sir.
Chad Holloway,
Good day.
Doug Hemmerdyke,
Hey,
and
well, I'm here.
Vince Quartararo.
How's it going?
Hey, it only took you 5 weeks to get his name right. Good job. I'm
Well,
impressed.
he wasn't here the last two, so shut up, bitch. So today we're going to be talking about, Vince brought up a topic. I'll let Vince introduce it, but we're going to discuss some of the things that have happened in the last year in the sense of taking it back to the witch hunts and the Salem witch trial. Vince, you want to explain this a little better than I can?
I'll do my best. I'll try to get down to what I was thinking about when I threw this idea out there. So, 2020, as we all know, has been a real interesting FUBAR-ish year. And one of the things, though, that really struck me is throughout all of 2020 is like this growing sense of crying witch. Pretty much everybody's familiar, at least heard of the Salem witch trials. I don't really know the full history of it, but I remember a lot of it was paranoia, fear, false accusations, or if you wanted to get revenge on somebody, pretty much you had to just say, all right, witch. And the whole rest of the town would just be like, okay, boom, you're a witch. I saw you doing this, you're a witch. I saw you doing that, you're a witch. So I'm happier to say that as we close out the year 2020, I'm witnessing a lot less of this, witch trial type stuff going on. So that's a good thing, and that's a good sign too for at least the neighborhood, let alone the national level. But a lot of it I really first started seeing was when everybody's like, the mask, the no mask,
Right.
and there were some actual physical, let's ding, ding, let's go down right now.
On
both sides. All right. Go ahead.
To that point, you had a couple incidents where you had people pulling guns on each other because of that. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. I heard at least 2 or 3 times. Yeah, and I'm sure there were times in other aspects where it had gotten very testy with that situation.
Yeah, and it wasn't. There was no like standard. It wasn't like, oh, okay, if you're an adult and I'm an adult, I'm gonna do it. I mean, like, and once again, I'm saying we're on both sides, and I'm not really sure which side was worse. Quite frankly, it was wrong, so it doesn't really matter. All right.
Right.
But I mean, like, to the point where, you'd have people coming up to a mother of a couple kids or whatever, verbally abusive, not holding any curse words back, everything, all these accusations, and just, full out public shaming. And then shut off like, hey, you get out of the village. You're an outcast now,
Right.
and again on both sides, and even also like touching on that, it was all of a sudden now people are like, well, what's your health history? Are you even allowed? And it's like, well, wait a second. Now we're talking private, So there was just this huge change. And a lot of it is from the fear and the paranoia and everything, but also I think also too people having the mentality of like, well, no, I know I'm right, I'm perfectly right, but
Right.
instead of talking to you, I am gonna whip you, abuse you. I'm gonna call to see if we can have the cops physically remove you, since I mean, it was, literally like we weren't burning people at the stake, at least not that I've heard of. And, but we were really killing them as far as no longer showing them any type of respect, whether it be as a human being or anything else. Cutting them off from the community by services or goods, or even just saying hi. And
Right.
like I said, now as we close out the year, it's getting a lot more calmer. I witnessed the last couple of days finishing up the hustle and the bustle. There was more people. I'm starting to see around here more people that aren't wearing masks. All right, and there were a couple people that you could be on the clear other side of the parking lot and you hear this person flamboyantly lynching them. All right, no mask, and it's the law and yada yada. And I was happy to hear somebody else interject in a real calm manner, like, hey, they have a right. You just go on your way. You go on your way. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and that calm collectiveness just broke the whole tension. Everybody just kind of was just like, yeah, okay, we're there's bigger things outside of all this, that try and just be enforcing this this bitterness, and again, like, if you're gonna have that type of debate, like, all right, let's have it on actual debate, not a I'm already dead before we even start talking type deal. And again, on both sides.
Right.
The other thing is like accusations. All right, my great aunt Frances passed away back in November, all of a sudden, and we had the funeral. We went to the funeral out there in oh my goodness, I forget. We were down there by Elizabeth. It's not Elizabeth. I forget where the heck we were. But
Irvington,
Roselle Park. Roselle Park.
yeah,
Cranford, Irvington.
Yeah, right around Irvington, Rose. Yeah, I don't remember, but
You said it was Roselle.
wasn't.
Clark.
I thought it was gonna be the huge cemetery off of Route 1 that like everybody's family. There's at least one family member of everybody's family buried in,
Right.
and it wasn't. It was a newer section. I think it's still technically part of that cemetery, but it was a newer section. I never even knew existed. But anyway. Yeah, we get there, and it was nice to be able to be there and say goodbye and hello one last time. But it was one of those where, even though we were all there to say goodbye, we were all there for my grandfather. It was his sister, and we masked, we social distance and everything. Is again, we're there for something totally more important than mask, no mask, and all that. But there were certain family members that couldn't even actually live that moment without that like well, I didn't like the sticker on that guy's car, right? I didn't like the fact that he actually gave grandma a kiss, and it was just like they didn't say anything, but you could tell by the body language. You could tell about pretty much like the second we closed up. It was just, and hey, if some of them see this, I'm sure they're gonna know exactly who I'm talking about. But they weren't able to even enjoy that moment of being together with the family and saying goodbye, because they were such on a hyper tense level of like pretty much like, all right, well, I think that one's the witch, so I gotta stay over here, or well that one's maybe not, so I'm gonna coagulate over there. It was just so weird. It wasn't weird because we're wearing masks. It wasn't weird because we're trying to social distance, or we all have hand sanitizer in our hands, as if it's like garlic and we're going to go hunt Dracula. It was weird because there were just those with such a changed mindset that they couldn't even actually, like, they weren't actually even living in the moment anymore.
Oh, is that what you're doing?
So
Still with that?
yeah, well, we just started. So you want to say hi?
What?
You want to say hi?
Oh,
Well, everybody, my father, Jim.
hi.
Oh, hi.
There.
How are you?
Oh, okay.
Hey, Jim.
I was just wondering where you were. That's all.
So,
Oh, all right. All right, very good.
as today's like was pointed to me, I didn't take it on that way at all, about COVID and witch hunting and stuff. And I don't know, I gave thought to it in like the last I don't know, 20 minutes before we were on. But I was thinking more or less about the way we speak and that words are meaningful. And we try to embrace with Brendan Moore now as he gets older, that it is important the way we speak and the way that we conduct ourselves and the way that we talk about other people. And what we talk about in our conversations, you never know what the other person is picking up on, because something that you say that is innocuous to you can sometimes be damaging to another person that you're talking about. And it came up about rumors really quickly in his school. Like we said, Brendan's getting older. He's in the 8th grade and stuff. Kids are catty. They talk. They make up things. They embellish things. And between with my family, we're a little bit, my brother and stuff are big on the embellishments and like making things bigger than they sound or changing the context of something by the language that is used.
Right.
So we try to, like right now, really get away with Brendan saying that, you need to speak the truth and say the truth. And sometimes the truth, you have to understand, doesn't have feelings. And that could be damaging to people. Like when you do say things in a certain way, in a certain tone, versus saying things that are full of pleasantries. And also, they did have an instance where they were talking about a teacher, and it did cause a problem for that teacher because of the things that they said, was not necessarily true, but taken out of context, and the kids were laughing and joking, and it's lunchtime, and they're telling their stories and all, and it really had an impact. And that's where this is coming from, how, it really can impact, what happens. So anyway, that was my little thing. And the only other thing, the only other thing I can think about witch trials is Monty Python. Duck, it floats. She must be a witch.
Oh yeah.
No, Doug, that is great. That was great. And you know what? Because you really touched on it also in a way that brings us outside of 2020, outside of this era, this time period, and everything. You reminded me of Dune, the power of a word and everything. I don't remember actual character's name, but it was like just the one guy's name was enough to like destroy or whatever in Dune, the first movie. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Even we've been going over that with Michael too. Is where, every word that comes out of your mouth holds some type of a weight. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's a great outlook. And definitely something that all of us need to be reminded of, especially like I noticed too, like there's certain individuals that, I mean, God bless them and I love them and everything, but I don't have them around my son because they have a sailor's mouth or they like to do, sexual innuendo type jokes and everything like that. And I even noticed starting to, myself, I keep them more at a distance because it's like, well, there's, okay, things could be funny. You got a ha he or whatever, but or we're making fun of each other or whatever. But it's like, dude, it's like, yeah, even making fun of each other, even close friends, close family, whatever, stuff starts to hurt, stuff starts to accumulate. So
right. And I can speak for one instance of having issues with things that are going on. My sister and brother-in-law had a friend who's a cop in town here who passed away a couple of weeks ago. He went to Aruba, apparently knowing he wasn't feeling well. Was there, came back, and within I would say within 12 or 18 hours from getting home, they thought he had had a heart attack and passed away. Well, it turns out it wasn't a heart attack at all. And it was COVID-19. And he had actually been thrown out of Aruba and sent back to New Jersey and taken home pretty much by EMS, and still didn't go to the doctor in the time that he was home. Went in the bathroom, and he did die of COVID-19. Now, I can give somebody somewhat of a pass for if it would have been a heart attack. I can give him a little bit of a pass, but knowing he was sick, and clearly I would make the judgment presenting symptoms of possibly having COVID-19, risking the lives of other people on the plane and while in Aruba, and then clearly that's just there comes a time where you have to kind of sit there and say, okay, you have to make a wise judgment here of having to draw a line of times when you don't put people at risks. Now, this is becoming more and more of a common thought as this goes on, because you have so many different varying opinions. You have this belief in some people of almost thinking it's not going to happen to them, and then when it does, there's this sense of surprise that it does. That's one thing that for us to even begin to start to curb this, that mentality of me first is going to have to change. Of the thought of putting everybody else at risk, putting people at risk, and putting their risk ahead of your beliefs, that's got to change. That can't keep happening.
No, I totally get. Sorry to hear that guy passed away. But you touch on it again. This goes for everybody in general, where there's a lack of common sense. Where it's like, all right, whether you believe the thing exists or how deadly it is, or so whatever the person's mentality has come to, rationalization, reasoning has gotten to the point, it's still one of those where what's going on, and if you're really are feeling really, really crappy, then common sense should say, okay, I need to step it back and at least think of even your own health.
Oh yeah.
And so it's still one of those like I would there's that lack of common sense. There's the blatant ignorance, all right, where some people are just, again, where oh well, I already decided this, so you fall in line with me, rather than like let's actually reason this, and use the brains that we have and make a thing, and also step back and not just be, like you said, like this me self outlook, which we've touched on a number of different things, there still does seem to be a big divide of where it's like, all right, you have those where it's like, no, it has to be super every single possible way, 6 foot, 10 foot, whatever, all the PPA or PPE. And then there's, on the other side, it's just like total, like
lack of it.
Peace, love, and whatever, long-haired freaky people type thing, like, hey, and it's like, but it's not yay, usually it's like that. But,
right.
Where we got to get back into that center point where it's like, okay, we all know it exists. All right. It does exist. Everybody knows that. So it's like, all right, even if your thinking is over here where you don't need PPE, you don't need this, we don't need that, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But these people over here are still people. And, there has to be some type of a empathy, to connect the common sense, the rationalization, the reasoning,
Right.
and to be able to come together. I mean, even growing up, if I went to my mother and told her I just threw up in the bathroom, and now granted there were times where I threw up in the bathroom, because there was a math test, but God bless mothers, they can figure that out. It's like, if I threw up in the bathroom, it was like, okay, you're staying home and let it run its course, because you didn't want to go in and make then your 5 other friends and 2 teachers throw up in the bathroom.
Right.
So it's like right now, if you're going to be like, well, I have a fever and I have this, but gosh darn it, the heck with any logical reasoning, let's go over, and on the other side though too, I've seen a lot of people where they're like, I haven't left my house, I've been doing this, I've been doing that, I've been following every CDC protocol, and I know 3 of them, one that actually came back positive, has COVID. Luckily it's been really, really, really minor, but, and then 2 others, they came back and everybody came back, but it's all been minor. So, thank God for that. But,
Right.
where they're questioning, like, well, wait a second, I followed every single possible thing. I listened, I did it all. How come I got it? So that how come I got it surprise again is on both sides, where one's pretty much just like, give me let me go visit Wuhan and I'll bring it back. Oh my gosh, I got the virus, and then the other one's like, I've been living underneath a rock for 9 months. How did I get this? And again, because I think we're losing a logical reasoning and common sense, and we're trying to go on this 2 extremes, where, like I said, going into the end of the year here, we're starting to come back to a lot better reasoning, empathy, outlook, and everything, and better union. But somebody go ahead, because my mouth is getting dry.
I was going to say, Vince, I was wondering if your long-haired freaky people was directed at Keith and me.
No.
I felt somehow harmed by that statement, but anyway, I'm just kidding. But bringing this back to kind of the Salem witch trials, I think some of this, when you look, as I'm sitting here thinking about what those were about and kind of things that have happened in our society, similar to that, kind of the analogs to that, it seems like it's really kind of a fear of the unknown, right? So we've got a new disease here, and there's a lot of things that we don't know about it, right? And so we're trying to get things figured out, and there's a lot of misinformation that's out there on Facebook, for example. People think they know, and they pick a side, right? So that's why that's why you have one group going against the other, kind of the accusers versus the witches, if you will. And both sides can be witches, right? The people who wear masks, who don't wear masks. But then you have a third party who in some way legitimizes that. Like at the time of the witch trials, it was based on the church. And now I think it's more based on the media, or I would even say it's driven much more or much less by religion and much more by politics. I mean, I think
the secular religion. Yeah.
It's politics, and I'm tired of politics. I don't want to go too far down that road, because that's one of the things that's tearing our society apart, I believe, is this division in the political groups, when and those are being falsely exacerbated, I believe. I don't there's not as wide a gap for the great majority of people in our society as is being made, right? So we got this fear of the unknown, we got these groups legitimizing the vilification of others. I mean, even like my first recollection of this was with the AIDS, right? That's another thing Fauci was involved with HIV. Mm-hmm. I don't know, Keith, you might remember. I think everybody else might be too young, but that was the time.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
that was a time when there's this new disease. Why are these guys getting sick? And all of a sudden, then all of a sudden, gay men are vilified, right?
Right.
Because it's not well understood. It's not, and now we understand it. So there's a lot less problem with that. It's been understood for a while, but that's just another example of when we have done that. And to some extent, that was driven by, I don't know, it could be a little bit of religion, a little bit of politics, kind of moral standing, kind of what people think about homosexuality in their heads. But when I look at kind of what we have going on with COVID at this point, when you look at the numbers, the science says if you're an old person and you get COVID, it doesn't look good for your mortality. If you're a young person and you're healthy, you're probably going to be okay. But the problem is that young, healthy person could be a vector of transmission. So they can further transmit that virus to people who are unhealthy and who will have that mortality, right? So that's part of the problem with that. But and the other thing that I take sitting here, thinking, because we're sitting here talking about me traveling to Colombia and going in these crowded airports and stuff, and there's a risk because I'm around a bunch of people from a bunch of different countries. But here's the thing: is I do the best I can to protect myself. I assume that every person I'm passing by has it, right? And that's something that developed also during the HIV crisis was universal precautions. Assuming everybody has it, if you treat everybody like they have it, then you're going to be much better protected. So it is a risk. It's a calculated risk, but I try to protect myself, speaking personally about this, and I think that's what everybody has to do. But so there's a lot of things going on there. There's the kind of the group dynamics of things, and I think Doug brought in kind of the micro dynamics of just like talking about rumors and spreading rumors and how words can hurt, versus Vince's point about the kind of the macro dynamics of a society when you kind of take one group against another, and then we're kind of filtering it through this through the COVID here. But yeah, I mean, so in a few years, I think it'll all be like HIV was. We'll be like, we'll feel much more comfortable with it because we'll have a better understanding.
Well, you're filtering it through COVID. The thing is, this has happened in now, like I had said earlier, this is happening in 3 different aspects of life and things that have happened in this in the United States, in the world this last year. COVID, the presidential election, and of course the issues with racial tensions in the police, and such, defund the police and all that, and Black Lives Matters and thing like that. And it's been happening. This has been happening for a long time anyway. It's been happening probably forever, really. It's just you're changing the filter. That's it. It's just constantly change the filter. And in this case, like I said, it's been just every like 2 minutes, it's something else about one of the 3 things. So
yeah, I agree, and I think in all those cases, it's related to not knowing about that stuff. And I know Keith has talked before about defund the police and how that doesn't actually mean defund the police. There are groups out there who do mean defund the police, yes. But the great majority of people who talk about defunding the police,
it's restructuring, refunneling the money, restructuring. Right. Yes.
Make it a little, but people who hear defund the police, it's not a good slogan.
Right. I mean,
improve the police, maybe. I don't know.
you can use, and in some cases we're using 2 filters because you're kind of looking at leadership's reaction to the things that have been going on, like COVID-19 and the police matters. But I mean, the main focus really right now, staying on focus, is the reaction by our leaders to the pandemic itself, which clearly, unless you've been living under a rock, we've seen the fact that there is going to be a change in leadership. No matter what anybody says or wants to believe, there is going to be a change in leadership come January. Can't argue that anymore. You can argue it, or you can argue it as much as you want, but one side's right and one side is most definitely wrong. But yeah, and COVID is a part of the reason as to why that change happened, and the response, things like that. I clearly, I mean, I would go. I don't even think I'm going out on a limb and saying this, that if the pandemic didn't happen and Trump didn't react to it the way he did, this would have been a lot different election.
I just think that I can't avoid the fact that my son is getting older, and what's around him like shapes what he thinks, and the people around him as well, and what their parents are doing. Their kids are also picking up on those pretenses and starting to figure themselves out and where they're going. And I'm sure Keith could tell us a lot about this, about his kids, because of how he brought them up and how they are so politically charged and have great opinions. And it's important. But my son is just starting to move into this. And I guess like on the bus, and different kids are like talking about what is obvious to us, the pandemic and all, and also the cure, and well, the vaccine, not a cure. And they already been talking about being delved out. And I guess some people are, like really worried about like, well, the initial amounts were given out to certain people, and every state's doing their own thing. And it goes back to, like we were saying, government control, government, what they're doing, what they're not doing. And for me, it's more or less what they're not doing. And it's, it's like one of those things where it's like, well, every state rules themselves, which, all right, fine. Yeah. That's the way our political system was set up. And, Brendan was like, well, I heard that, certain groups are given priority. And I'm like, well, that's not necessarily true. And tried to explain to him the process. And it is true
Right.
with what the person had said, in the context of what he was saying, what he probably heard. But I'm like, well, the way that our government is set up, and stuff. So it's very interesting and very trying time. Well, not even trying, but a really cool time for me. It's like be able to like starting to communicate with my son more effectively and talking to him about more different topics. Both me and my wife, just about everything in life and politics and the way people talk. Once again, which is a big part of the witch trials, and and just the way people have different views, and how it pertains to where you live and what you believe and all is very sensitive, and something that we definitely have to talk about. And that's why it's so important around dinner tables to sit your kids down and spend that time with them, you know, and knowing what they hear and what their perceptions are and what they heard, and what they're picking up on. It's I think it's dinner around the dinner table is an important time.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah, for Michael and I, it's sporadically throughout the day, but the most important is right after we say prayers, and he's getting ready to go to bed. It's always, Daddy, can I ask you one more question? And I prepare myself, because I know that one question is going to be a 3 hour, really, really heartfelt, deep, everything that he's been like throughout the day. It's more like, how do I build this? How do I fix this? How do I do this? But nighttime, when we finally sit down and we're both like, it's a day, then it's like, all right, I got this stuff. We got to talk about this, and I look forward to it. And yeah, definitely, he's picking up, this year with politics was just, I was kind of looking forward to, because I knew he would be able to really actually like enjoy a debate, and I turned on the first debate, and I'm just like, wow, like, yep, nope, I'll watch this later, and I'm not having him watch this, because this is not how you debate.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And it was one of those where, like, okay, yeah, he needs to know about politics and everything like that. There are things in life that we may not be fully passionate about, but we're still part of society, so we need to know about it. All right. But also like, you know, being around some people where, they don't even call the person by a name anymore. They call them by, one of the 50 million curse word nicknames that they give either candidate. And it's like, I heard him say those nicknames once or twice and I stopped him. And I'm like, no, it's just not how we talk. All right. It's just not, and so yeah, maintaining that foundation of like, proper versus improper, yeah, you can have a slip of the tongue at times. Things get heated, things get passionate, or serious, all that. But what's the old saying? Garbage in, garbage out. What isn't that like a McDonald's commercial or something? So definitely keeping up, talking to him, and also being more mindful too of hey, what's playing in the background. Is it radical one way or the other? Is it going to be people that are actually trying to talk about this and have their ideas? Everybody's entitled to their own idea, or is it going to be a bunch of really just hate? And it's like, no, you can't you can't be promoting hate.
Right.
It's just, it doesn't heal, it doesn't fix, it doesn't resolve, and again, I see it on all the different aspects where, throughout the whole year, they'd be like, oh, it turned into hate. Things were put in motion that it really could have been a big change, a big good change. With BLM, with changing not only changing pretty much from the ground up. All right, so we all knew, at least we all knew, that corruption is in every facet of society from the ground to the top. All right, and instead it got so overheated so quick, and we could blame this one or that one or whatever, but all the individuals together, all right, in all the different aspects is what brings it. All right, and it got so overheated that it all those who really wanted the change, all those who are trying to fight for the changes, in a good way, all right, are getting snuffed out, or getting over. Here you go, Dad. They're getting snuffed out. So then everybody's just hearing the extremes one way or the other, instead of actually like keeping the focus on changing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think you're 100% correct. Things get so extreme, and that's where people gravitate to. Well, even though I think many times they're more in the middle, or more towards the middle, it's something that can be resolved. But they go out to the far edges.
Keith? Oh, he's on.
Yes, sir.
Anything?
I haven't found a thread there that made a whole lot of sense to me, so I'm sort of still trying to process it all. I think back to I'm the guy here in this group with the kids who are the oldest, so their involvement in knowing about what's going on in society is the longest term. And I think back to the North Carolina, or was it Duke? I think it was the Duke men's lacrosse team or field hockey or something.
Talking about the alleged rape
or whatever.
So
alleged rape. Yeah, that was Duke.
The reason I bring that up is because it was the earliest time I saw, particularly Justin, the older one of my two, the 21-year-old, really start to have an opinion which wasn't overly positive about society and the way it jumps all over people at accusation and doesn't wait for people to, doesn't give people a chance to defend themselves. And we live in a society that once you are accused of something, you're screwed. Your life is over. Doesn't matter if you're guilty or not. And Justin, when he was much younger, got really upset about that because of, he's a big sports hound. So that was a big story that he was familiar with and had researched and all that. And, he wasn't around, and none of us were around for things like McCarthyism. We talked about the Salem witch trials, but McCarthyism was no different.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we fast forward now to 2020, and being a human resources guy, I have all sorts of fears that I've been talking about since January, and that is there's a difference between antigen antibody testing. Antigen is whether or not you have the disease, whether or not you have COVID. Antibody is whether or not you ever had it previously. And there's a whole set of regulations and guidelines and soon to be laws about whether or not people can be forced to take the antibody test, because it doesn't tell you whether or not if you had it 3 months ago, you're not going to be a danger to anybody now.
Right.
But so there's all sorts of privacy issues and that sort of thing. But if you start forcing people to admit whether or not they once had it, and then you put that big scarlet letter A on their chest because of that, or because they didn't, I don't know. I don't even know where that's going to go. And the boys and I have had a lot of conversations about that. They're keenly aware of people being labeled because of whether or not they had it or not, or whether or not, as Chad in particular was talking about, and Vince, whether or not they choose to wear a mask or not, without any coherent guidelines from the government on that topic. It's going to be a free for all, and people are going to get angry at each other. There have been a lot of conversations in this house about people's opinions, and as much as I give my kids credit for recognizing that McCarthyism was a bad thing and that the Salem witch trials were a bad thing, and that people being persecuted for their views on certain things is a bad thing, even they are falling victim to the idea of, if you don't wear a mask in public, you're wrong. Now, I personally happen to believe that someone is horrifically wrong if they don't wear a mask in public, but that's my belief. One of the things our society fails to truly process is that there's very little in life that is right or wrong. Very little. In fact, it's really hard for me to figure that out. My sons are still at an age where they believe that if somebody is anti-Semitic, being that we are Jewish, that they're wrong. And as hard as it is for me to say it, they're not wrong. They simply have a different belief that I very strongly don't believe in. It's a belief. I find it disgusting. If somebody is anti-Jewish or anti-Black or anti-woman, it's a very hard place to get to understand that that's not wrong. It's vile. It's hideous. It has no place in our society. But to label it right and wrong is the beginning of the road to war, to violence, to enforcing your will, when we're supposed to be a country that's all about free speech, freedom of expression, freedom of opinion. There's a lot of opinions out there that I don't believe in. Many of them are at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue right now. I don't believe in hardly anything they believe in. But I continually remind myself, and I try to get my kids to understand and embrace the concept that what is being spewed out of that building is not wrong. It's just disgusting. And the only way we're going to get to a place where we talk about things and eventually understand each other is by getting rid of the right and wrong. Vince, you bring up a lot of great points. All you guys bring up a lot of great points. But we're dangerously on the cusp of right and wrong as opposed to people's opinions. And that's part of the reason why I was really quiet the first half hour of our podcast today is I'm having trouble wrapping myself around it because I'm so adamant about the allowing people to have an opinion, even if it's not one I agree with, even if it's one I find reprehensible, that sometimes I have trouble processing or commenting. And today's definitely one of those days. And my sons and I mean, I consider my sons to be really smart. I mean, they, great grades in school and, have done well for themselves so far. And very, very well informed, but they get very opinionated sometimes. They're 18 and 21. They haven't, not a lot of worldly experience yet. But there's a lot of opinion from their side that they believe is right. And that makes me nervous. Because it doesn't allow room for inclusion. They would very much like to see the conservative religious right eliminated, not necessarily incorporated. We're making progress. We're getting there. There'll be, hey, listen, I was 18 once and probably felt the same way. They are definitely left-leaning, progressive thinking people that they're having trouble with tolerance right now. But we all go through that maturation phase.
Right.
Absolutely. And those are great points, Keith. I think you're hitting the nail on the head too. It's like, because I always say all ideas are valid, and certainly some of them, like you, some of them repulse me as well.
Mhm.
But better to know what those ideas are and have them out than to have them hidden away in some corner waiting to attack you in some way, in some sort of more egregious way. But that's what I always tell Frankie is like, you have to listen to everybody, listen to all things. I mean, if we're really a true democracy, and even beyond that, beyond the politics, just like as a person, listen to what people have to say. Try to understand what they're saying. You don't have to agree with it, but try to understand what they're saying, because that may inform your opinion. You may think something different if you listen to their side, or they may think something different if they listen to your side. But you're exactly right. If you just say, this is the way, this is the truth, and I contain the truth, nobody else is right, that can become a problem.
Well, I think part of the issue, honestly, is the fact that the current administration left this in the hands completely the individual states, without any input at first. It just pretty much was wash his hands of it, and he pretty much just left the states to it. And in the beginning of this, and even to an extent now, I have people who live in Utah trying to tell us what's better for us and what is the right thing to do. So it's still happening. And I mean, if you look at the numbers, they shouldn't be saying a damn word, because they have no fucking idea what they're going through, what we're going through compared to what they are. It's not even close, not even remotely close. So for people who haven't been going through this the way we have in certain areas and in certain countries, this whole thing in general was handled improperly. I think worldwide to an extent, but egregiously here in the U.S. by the administration deciding to put it in the state's hands. I think that was the first mistake, and then obviously the other mistake of knowing what he knew, downplaying it even now, after he tested positive for it, and acting like it was no big deal when he was given drug treatment for severe cases. So you kind of have to take anything that comes out of the White House about this with a grain of salt. Keith's right.
If I could throw in real quick before Vince, let me just throw this real quick. My disdain for the White House right now is no secret. I think they all should be put in jail, like every one of them. They're disgusting human beings that there's nothing too horrific that could happen to them. However, to be fair, despite the fact that all of what they've done is, in my opinion, largely responsible for the deaths of most of the people who died, the real villains here are the American people.
Yeah.
Entitlist, privileged, full of shit society that we live in that finds it more important to get their nails done and go to the movies and go out than it does to care about the health of the next door neighbor. I'd love to heap all of the blame on that piece of shit in the White House, but it's not all his fault. He could have done a better job leading, leadership by example and all that. But our society is just a disgrace, which is why the United States in general has had the poorest record on COVID response of any country in the world by far.
Mhm.
By far. So let's put the blame where it belongs, in my opinion. There are 327 million Americans, many of which who are as responsible for what's going on as the buffoon in the White House. But I don't have an opinion here or anything.
I think the governments overall, state level and the federal level, did not do a good job.
Oh yeah.
I think that, in the way that our society, the way that our democracy is set up, is the states typically have control of their own state, right? Until they ask for help. And that's for the most part how it happens. So one example here is with COVID. I think he was hands off with that. But then when he says, for example, once the rioting started with BLM, he said, "Oh, we'll go on and put an end to that." Well, no, we got that under control, right? So in certain cases, it's selectively going after the White House, because in one case he does want to intervene, and in another case they didn't intervene. But in both cases, he's vilified, right? And I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
He didn't. Are you glossing over Portland?
What's that?
Are you glossing over Portland?
Well,
what his military forces did in Portland when they responded.
But did the state government protect the federal buildings there? No. The state just said it was a free for all. And so he went in to protect that because there's information in those buildings and there's resources, and it's an asset, right? So they protected it. But I think that was the limit of it, right? Was they really were protecting the federal building. They didn't go out and shut down that whole thing. I mean, they're still rioting. So that's one thing. And then when you look at New York, as soon as Cuomo asked for help, man, they converted Madison Square Garden into beds. They brought in that big ship. I was super impressed by how fast the military put together that whole deal, but they had excess capacity. So in a certain sense, Cuomo and his group overestimated how much they would need for the illness. So they had these two things that were created utilizing resources that could have been used in other locations for nothing. So, I mean, if they're going to use those resources there, that takes away from another place. So maybe they could have been used in Florida, for example. That was another place. But, overall.
Florida. Whoa. Florida.
Overall.
Really?
Somewhere else. I mean, the point is.
Guys, stop.
Nobody knows what's going on.
We're going off a deep end here. There's clearly some disagreement in how this was handled in this group.
There is.
It's not really why we do this podcast. So let's.
Right.
But Jason presented his point on it, so I was presenting the counterpoint because I think both sides were flawed.
Yeah. Well, I really think between you, Chad, and Keith, you guys, kind of melded together where it's like we can't say that one person was the supreme witch and try to say, okay, we're gonna burn him at the end of the year, and it's no governors, representatives, communities, people, scientists, doctors, all of us in every single one of us in our own way either brought up the flames or bellowed it down or whatever, and yeah, as far as government goes, I think every single one of them was trying to step away, wash their hands, and then when they did make decisions after they tried to wash their hands, and then when people came back and said they didn't like that, then they were like, well, no, I had to do this because it's really total shit show. All right, from all of them, and from the majority of all of us. Going back to the, where, but then again, all right, we look at our leaders, all right, our governors and our representatives, and we see the way they're trying to pretty much, not hide their words, all right, and so then all of us started going with that too, but again, not thinking about our words, and everything. So, but yeah, I agree, Keith. Thank you for interjecting, because that is, yeah, we were going to be going off into a new type of island, not Thailand. So, but anyway,
In 2012, in the second debate, and this is one thing. In the second debate, in the middle of it, prior to that, the attack on Benghazi had happened. Correct? Does
Yeah,
anyone
if you're asking me.
remember? Does anyone remember when questioned about it, what the president said? President Barack Obama said. Anybody remember?
I do not.
no.
4 words. The buck stops here.
But it didn't.
Actually, he took full responsibility for Benghazi from minute 1, from the moment he said that. He accepted full responsibility.
I've been in the Middle East, and I've had people from Saudi Arabia, from Syria, a physician from Syria asked me, he says, what happened? He says, Barack Obama drew the line in the sand in Syria and said, you will not cross this. But he says, they did. And he says, and my family now is in a refugee camp. How do I respond to that? I didn't. I just go, I'm not in the government. I can't speak on his behalf.
Never mind.
I mean, for every point you bring up, I can bring up another one, but on both sides.
Yeah, I think it's a great saying, but I don't find much merit in it.
Yeah, same.
Anyway, we're way off topic, and
Boy, that's never happened before.
and my groceries are here, so
The important things.
And
Well, we have been going about an hour, but I have no idea how to wrap this up because there's like 85 different topics we've wandered
All
over
right.
this week.
Well, yeah, I mean, my final thoughts are, I mean, like I said, tell my kids about how important it is that words matter, and that there's definitely things going on where it's culture versus your personal beliefs, and you need to figure out where you fit in there, and also when society or when the leaders tell you that certain thing is the way you should believe, well, we as Americans have our own way of voicing that, and there's options, and you don't have to like cave to your beliefs just because society is saying that this is the way you should believe and the things that you need to do. But at the same time, you have to understand that what your reactions are and what you do definitely affect the people that you're around. Whether you're a parent and they affect your kids, whether you're a kid and they affect your friends, whether it's something that you say outwardly and that affects a group of people around you, whether you're the president and that's, the way that you show yourself in public, that affects people. It's all cause and effect. And the witch trials was a great way to point that out, that, it was people casting aspirations and lies possibly and whatever else, and how they caused the deaths of many people, and grew like disparaging things. And it goes into I was watching the entire season of the Twilight Zone, the first episode, the first season, and they have an episode where they think that because all the power's out on their street, that one of their friends is an alien, and they start throwing disparaging things against one neighbor, and then all of a sudden something happens in the other neighbor's house, and then all of a sudden the entire group like grabs their torches and they go to the neighbor's house, and they're like, well, what about you and what you're doing? And that's exactly how easily it happens, except on a much greater thing here, because the media of today, and how easy it is for things to change and people's opinions to change. And, you just need to raise up your kid right and do what you think is best in your own eyes, although you do need to keep in mind, any kinds of laws, because like in the time of Noah, people like just brought law into their own eyes, and that's when God put his wrath on people.
And
So that's enough for me this week.
Doug, you bring up the obvious point, and that is that God help us. What if we had had social media in the time of the Salem witch trials or McCarthyism?
Or like in Young Frankenstein when they're chasing down what's his name, Dr. Frankenstein and the monster.
Let's just say we wouldn't be here if we'd had social media in those times.
Or the Civil War, for that matter.
That's probably true also.
There's going to be...
Jason, I think you ought to put a wrap on it before we all dive off the deep end.
There's going to be...
I think Doug wrapped it up really good, bringing it back to back to setting examples and words and our kids. I think he wrapped it up pretty well there. And then he threw in Twilight Zone. I mean, come on, especially coming into the new year, we're all going to be watching that marathon.
Which, by the way, was one of the great shows on TV of all time.
Yeah.
Is that even still on?
Issue.
Do they even still have the marathon?
I think they still have the marathon. If not, I'm going to throw my DVD collection on top of the Xbox and watch it that way.
I know they pretty much have stopped the Honeymooners one. They stopped that a while ago. Because
that's a good show. Yeah.
Because PIX, where they had it on here in New York, New Jersey, is long gone anyway. They don't even run that. That could be on like Nick at Night or MeTV or whatever. I know MeTV is bringing back a bunch of stuff. So,
well, Hulu has all the seasons and all the episodes, and I just got through season 1.
You still got to go search them out and put each individual episode on, or just run them together. But like the marathon TV really is, except unless it's on like Food Network, is pretty much
a shot.
A lost art form. Yeah. So we have still a couple of days left in 2020 here, and as I saw earlier, I believe Keith posted it. Something along the lines of, in a week, 2020 becomes legally able to drink. So hang on. That kind of, and I saw another interesting thing. Like I said, I mean, there's a lot of change that's going to be happening over the next few months, and we wait with bated breath to see how that all works out. I don't personally think much is going to change at all. Hopefully, but I doubt really anything is going to change too much anytime soon. All we can do is hope and keep working, like you said, working on moving forward. Somebody else brought up an interesting point this week of, I know everybody says, Happy New Year when the clock strikes 12, but somebody said this, and I think it actually fits this year pretty well. Instead of saying Happy New Year, we should all scream Jumanji, and hopefully this fucking game will end finally. Pretty much. Okay. Let's say in 5 words or less. Let's do this quick, and then we'll head out of here. In 5 words, sum up 2021. Everyone, Vince, if since you're literally, I have my phone set up to go who's talking, but I guess you made the most recent noise, so you're the one in front of me right now. So 5 words to describe 2020, or tell 2020 goodbye, whatever you want to do.
It's been awesome. That's
okay. Chad?
I'd say, see you later. See you later, 2020.
Doug?
Ready for 2021.
Jeez, anybody not going to sound like a fucking radio DJ?
Beef tenderloin being bought.
Keith?
Okay, let me try that again. Since you don't want a radio DJ, and now on the main stage, it's 2021. Come on, guys.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Did we lose Keith?
Oh, sorry. My 5 words are get the fuck out now.
Adios, motherfucker would have been pretty much about where I would have gone with that. So, really don't think there's anything else to add, except, like I said, I know, the whole Old Lang Syne thing. The only thing that we really can do is the old saying is take care of yourselves and each other. Another way to say it is
take care of the other and you take care of yourself.
Another one that I like is life's too short to sweat the small stuff. You here for today, live for today.
Well, and life's too short to sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. And something I always share with Frankie is I'm like, in our lives, in everybody's life, they've been given some sort of blessing of some sort, or some sort of advantage that they have. Everyone, I don't care who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell him it's imperative upon us to share those blessings and share those benefits that we have in our lives with others and trying to make the world a better place.
Right. One thing we talk about on a weekly basis in meetings is, and it seems to be a common thought of you waiting for the other shoe to drop. Thing is, you slowly start to realize that you're the one who's been throwing the shoe the whole time. And once you stop throwing the shoe, guess what? The shoe don't drop no more. So, from all of us here at Dad's on Life, Jumanji.
Jumanji.
Jumanji, guys. We'll see you next time.